So you know how sometimes you hear a news story and it's like, wow, that's kind of sad, but also kind of fascinating?
Yeah, like bittersweet.
Exactly. That's what we're diving into today with the whole shell factory closing.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, we've got articles here from like every local news outlet in Southwest Florida, Fort Myers News Press, Fox 4, The Breeze. It's more than just a business closing, you know?
Right. Like, what does it really mean for a place like that to shut down after all this time?
Totally. We're talking almost a century of history here.
It's crazy. Like, I had no idea it went back so far. When did it open?
1938.
No way. Seriously. That's before World War II.
Think about that for a second. 1938. That's the year Orson Welles freaked everyone out with that War of the Worlds thing on the radio.
Oh, yeah. Everyone thought aliens were invading. Wild times.
Wild times. So yeah, the shell factory has seen a lot of history. But what exactly was it? I mean, beyond just a place to buy shells.
Well, it actually started as this tiny shell store.
Figures, right, with a name like that.
But get this, over the years, it morphed into this whole roadside attraction, entertainment complex, animal refuge. You name it, they had it.
It's like classic Florida kitsch from what I've seen. Bumper boats, mini golf. They even had one of those huge gift shops.
Oh, yeah, those massive ones where you can get lost for hours.
Exactly. Like 50,000 square feet of pure souvenir heaven.
Well, I can only imagine.
But honestly, what really jumped out at me from these articles was the nature park. They had over 400 animals there.
Wait, seriously, I did not know that.
Yeah. And it wasn't just like a petting zoo or something. It sounds like they did some serious conservation work, too.
Like,
Several articles mentioned them working with like wildlife officials and stuff to give a home to animals that couldn't survive back in the wild.
that's actually really cool.
Right. It's like, yeah, it's touristy and all, but they also had this whole other side of giving back.
Definitely makes you think about it differently.
It does, but also makes it even more confusing why they're closing now.
Yeah, how do you go under after almost a century?
Right. I mean, they've been through hurricanes, fires.
Yeah.
The news press even mentions one back in the 70s that almost took the whole place out. So what gives?
Good question. Well, the owner, Pam Cronin, she's been running it for almost 30 years. She talked about the rising cost of keeping an 86-year-old property in good shape, especially in Florida with the humidity and everything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Hurricanes, salt air. That takes a toll. But they survived all that before. There's even an article from the Cape Coral Breeze talking about them getting through the 2008 recession. So why is it different this time? It does feel like there's more to this story than meets the eye. Like maybe this is just one piece of a bigger puzzle.
You know, you're right. It's like reading between the lines of these articles and you start to see this theme emerging. It's almost like we're witnessing the slow fade of old Florida.
Old Florida. Okay, I
Yeah.
like where this is going. But what do we mean exactly by old Florida? Help me out here.
Well, just think about the shell factory for a minute. It's quirky. It's got that old school charm. It's all about the natural wonders, that whole vibe. It's not exactly what comes to mind when you think of the Florida you see in those glossy travel magazines today, is it?
True. Today it's all mega theme parks, high-rise condos, those perfectly planned out communities.
Exactly. That whole roadside attraction scene, the mom and pop businesses, that slower pace of life. That's the Florida that a place like the Shell Factory represents, and it's fading fast.
So you're saying that the shell factory closing is kind of symbolic of this bigger shift that's happening.
I think so. And while none of the articles explicitly say this, you can't help but wonder if changing tourism trends are playing a part.
Makes sense.
I mean, think about it. Families today, they've got options coming out their ears. Theme parks, water parks, resorts. And those places, they offer a level of polish and spectacle that a place like the Shell Factory just can't compete with.
Yeah, when you're up against the wizarding world of Harry Potter, a giant seashell might not cut it.
It's tough. But I also think there's maybe a generational component to this too, like for folks who grew up visiting places like the Shell Factory, there's a nostalgia there, right?
Yeah.
Those childhood memories, those family trips. It's special.
Oh, absolutely.
But for younger generations who haven't had those experiences, it's not the same.
And then you throw in the whole technology angle. Why drag the kids to a nature park when you can just pull up a documentary on your phone?
Right. And it's not that old Florida is totally gone, but its grip is loosening. And when a place like the Shell Factory closes its doors, it really makes you confront that.
And it makes you wonder what happens to these places. Like, none of these articles really address the future of the property itself. What happens to that land? It's not insignificant. We're talking 18 acres.
Right. Prime real estate in North Fort Myers.
And that's the other layer to this whole story. This Fox 4 article mentioned all the development that's been happening around the shell factory.
Oh, yeah. Like condos,
Yeah,
strip malls.
all that. So
Yeah.
you got to wonder, what will become of those 18 acres? Will those pink flamingo decorations be replaced by something a little more 21st century?
It's almost like we're talking about two separate stories here that are kind of crashing into each other. You've got the nostalgia, that whole saying goodbye to a bygone era thing.
Right.
But then there's the reality of progress. And I bet there are developers out there right now licking their chops, thinking about what to build on that land.
Oh, for sure. It's the story of Florida, isn't it? It's like this
Yeah.
constant push and pull between holding on to the past and, well, making way for the future. Totally. Yeah. But this one feels a little different, right? Because the shell factory, from what we're reading, it wasn't just stuck in the past. It actually went through a ton of changes over the years. It was like this little survivor.
You're hitting it. I mean,
Yeah.
think about that story from one of the articles, I think it was the News Press, about how the shell factory almost went belly up back in the 90s. They were this close to calling it quits.
Oh, yeah. But then Pam and Tom, the owners, swooped in and saved the day.
Exactly. And it wasn't just a business deal for them, you know? Tom actually fell in love with the place, saw its potential. They put their hearts and souls, not to mention a whole lot of money, into expanding it, growing the nature park, making it even better than it was before.
It's kind of amazing when you think about it. They could have just been content with the whole kitschy roadside attraction thing. But they went all in on the animal rescue stuff, set up an educational foundation.
It's inspiring, right? It wasn't just about the bottom line for them. They really cared about the community, about the animals. You can tell just from how people are reacting to the news.
Oh, yeah, big time. That article from Wink News, especially, it was full of people sharing their memories about the shell factory. First dates, family reunions.
Right. It's those personal connections that really hit home. It wasn't just a place to go kill an afternoon. It was part of the fabric of people's lives.
And that's what gets lost in all of this,
Yeah.
It's not just about a business shutting down. It's about the memories, the history, the sense of place that disappears with it.
It makes you think twice about what we call progress.
It does. It's like, yeah, change is inevitable and all that. But how do we hold on to those things that make a place unique, that give it meaning, even as everything around it changes? It's a tough one.
No easy answers. But maybe that's why this whole story resonated with us so much. It's something we're all grappling with in different ways, right? How do we hold on to what matters in a world that's constantly shifting beneath our feet?
Deep thoughts for a place that sold seashells and had a giant plastic lobster out front.
Right. But hey, you know what they say. Sometimes the deepest truths are hidden in the most unexpected places.
Truer words have never been spoken. And maybe, just maybe, the memories that people made at the shell factory, those stories, those shared experiences, maybe that's how old Florida survives. Not in bricks and mortar, but in the hearts and minds of the people who loved it.
Beautifully said. And hey, maybe those memories will inspire some folks to seek out those hidden gems, those quirky roadside attractions that are still out there, keeping that old Florida spirit alive. You never know what you might discover.
There you go. That's the spirit. So the next time you're cruising down a back road and you see one of those faded signs promising adventure or maybe just a really good slice of pie, pull over. You never know what stories are waiting to be discovered. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deeper.